Okay, hello, welcome to my portfolio. So I am going to take you through several pieces of writing, presentations, and different artifacts from my time at Ericsson. These artifacts represent the 10 program learning outcomes that I gained during my education and fieldwork. So we will start with knowledge. In our first PLO, students will integrate human development knowledge across the lifespan with social work theory. So the first artifact is an essay from the social emotional development course. So this essay is from the first section of social emotional development, and the selected artifact is an essay from the second course of this. So it was interesting to see the range of depth, I guess, how I was able to um, just go more into depth with my second artifact. So the first artifact is an essay, um, and something that stood out to me was the knowledge of uh, how I wrote in this essay, the knowledge of childhood development and everything that we learn about social emotional health and learning when we were little, we can use that with adult clients to help them understand maybe their attachment styles that are present for them in adulthood, or we can help them understand any trauma that they experienced as a child. We can use our knowledge of how um, children's minds develop to help adult clients as well as um, younger clients. So the selected artifact again is an essay from the second course in social emotional development. This one is on identity development, and I noticed that I was able to include a lot of more, um, I don't want to say technical, but just specific terms um, regarding how we actually create memories and how we create our identity or our sense of self. Um, the paper also includes uh, information about the Yucatec Mayan children and their community. So they have a very different idea of how a child is to be brought up, and they even have um, different kind of like constructs for friendship because their children from a really young age spend so much time in groups of children that are a bit older than them, as well as like same age. And the older children care for the younger ones. So their games and their friendships are all very different when you compare it to the United States. Um, what I found to be missing from these artifacts is how, as a social worker, I would implement this information. So I know I touched on like in the first artifact, using the knowledge about childhood development and development across the lifespan with adult clients, but I guess I could have included more about application. So for our second PLO, Yeah, students will critically analyze the complex issues around human rights and will engage in advancement of social, racial, economic, and environmental justice. My first artifact is an essay from the course Anti-Oppressive Reflective Practice. It was my final paper. Um, Within this paper, I examine the culture and community that I grew up in, and I reflect on the impacts on my experience growing up in a very white suburban in Metro Detroit, and my um, a bit about Catholicism. Um, and I guess I remember writing this, and I remember feeling like I was like, I think like just trying to grasp at something, and there's almost like a realization of like what does culture and identity mean to me? Um, yeah. Um, my selected artifact is the activity Buddies. So you'll hear me talk a lot about this activity or program. So Buddies was a program that my supervisor at my um, field placement, this my most recent field placement, created. And so she was a school social worker at an elementary school, and she created this program where the general education students from the fourth grade, um, every Friday, they kind of break up into small groups and they disperse themselves between the three categorical classrooms at this elementary school. So what that means is there was an autism spectrum disorder classroom of about, it was very small, like 5 students. So that's you'll see in my papers like ASD, and then we have MOCI and MICI. So MOCI is moderate um, cognitive impairment, and then MICI is mild cognitive impairment. So the MOCI and MICI classrooms had several students that also had um, physical impairments. Um, they needed some sort of assistance ambulating, moving around. One student was in a wheelchair that was not electric, so she needed somebody to push her. A lot of the students wore like leg braces, some wore back braces, um, and they, as well as in the ASD room, they used something called an AAC device, which you'll see in this too. So an AAC, it's basically an iPad with a software that the speech pathologist kind of sets up for the student. So it'll have like pictures of their family members and of their teachers and their friends. And when you click on one, it will say mom or dad. You can even like change the voice, the sound of the voice, the tone, and you can make it say full sentences like I want food. Um, and it has categories like colors, descriptions, people, activities. So that's kind of the setup for these two populations. So we have our general education children, students, and then the categorical rooms. So on Fridays, the fourth graders would disperse themselves throughout those 3 rooms, and they would either have like some sort of setup activity to engage in or free time. Um, and I think one thing that I was just super proud of and really enjoyed doing was being present during these times. And one example of this is we were in the gym, and they just kind of like had stuff out for them like to play with, like little like tricycles and balls and mats and ropes, like to climb. Um, and I realized that for a lot of those students, it's physically not possible for them to get on a little tricycle or to even roll a ball. So I sat with one of the students in the Mokai room, and we had the other gen ed students. We made a circle, and I explained to them like the game categories where I roll the ball to you, and the category is vegetables, and we all name a vegetable. If you can't think of one, then you have to change the category. So I kind of taught another student how to use the AAC device, and it's difficult because although like the a lot of the students have the AAC device, they might not always use it. Like in this situation, they were, I think, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know because they can't exactly tell me, but I think that they were just enjoying being present with the other students and enjoying being in the gym. They're laughing and smiling, but when, we would ask, like, okay, like you have to name a vegetable, they didn't respond by using their AAC. So I would kind of go on the AAC with the other students and say, like, oh, like, look, we can choose from these and just choose one. So that was my way of kind of like including the categorical students in a way that was fun and didn't feel forced. Um, and I did get a lot of questions from the general education students about like why do they need a leg brace or why are they in a wheelchair? And those were always really conversations that I never knew how to or never felt like I did a good enough job with, but I tried to keep it just like respectful and simple and like we're all just different and sometimes people need different kinds of help. Um, but overall the kids were really, really great and I really enjoyed this activity. And that is my kind of, I guess, big takeaway from my placement of this past year, just how to um, meet students where they're at and include them in any way that you can. And I feel like when we talk about meeting people where they're at, it makes me think of therapy and a patient or a client who's, maybe depressed and meeting them where they're at. But this was physically like meeting someone where they're at. So, what can you physically do to enjoy yourself during this time with your peers? All right, the third program learning outcome is engaging in practice-informed research and research-informed practice. The first artifact is a paper from the research methods course, and the second artifact was a lesson or a session plan that I used at the elementary school. And I created this after taking the DBT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and CBT PESI training. I'm going to pause here to make sure that the videos are not too long.